the Auburn Blitz Podcast, your direct source for all Auburn all the time with Brett Pritchard, Faith Richardson, and Randy Lee.
What's up, everybody, and welcome into the Auburn Blitz Podcast here. We're glad that you joined us wherever it is that you're joining us and whenever it is that you join us in making Auburn Blitz part of your daily Auburn athletic intake. The full crowd here today, minus Randy. We've got Jason with us here on a Monday, and Faith as always, and hope both of you guys had a great 4th of July weekend, guys.
Did, had a good one. Yeah, had a chance to see some fireworks and, just kind of relax a little bit. So it was kind of nice.
Yeah, it was fun. Finally got to, I think, chill for a minute.
Yeah, don't relish it too much because now it's full-fledged again. Hey, we do want to say real quick, thoughts and prayers continue to go out to those here at Lake Martin who were part of the fireworks incident, and I know them really well. Jason, I know you know them too, and Faith, I introduced you to those guys a few weeks ago, and been doing that show for a long time, and just a freak accident, and thank goodness no casualties involved. But again, we do want to say thoughts and prayers because that was right here in our backyard, and hope all of them come out okay there as they are hospitalized right now trying to recover from that. Also, thoughts and prayers with people out in Texas, guys. I know this is not on topic, but that's one of the most horrific things I think I've ever witnessed. It's just unbelievable. Watching the video of how fast that water rose. I mean, it's almost like it was fake. Yeah, no, it's just devastating when it happens to anyone, but when it happens to children, it just makes it even worse to even think about.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers go out to the families of those little girls and the people that were there with them too. In fact,
Maddie, really close to her home, who interns with us and is part of our group. So talked to her this weekend too. Just thoughts and prayers for that whole area of the state. But Jason, as always on Mondays, glad to have you back. It's been a couple of weeks, kind of a lot going on here, Jason, and we'll dive right into it. First off, Auburn does add a commitment, Kentrell White. I'll just let you kind of talk about him. Auburn needing a tight end in this class. They grabbed Kentrell White, kind of really has just emerged onto the scene. And Auburn started looking at him and he started getting more looks. Just your thoughts on Kentrell White.
Yeah, I think one of those guys you look at in, Hugh Freeze's offense, an Evan Ingram type of guy. We just saw it with Rivaldo Fairweather. I think a guy that's a, hybrid tight end, kind of be his role. He's really good with the ball in his hands. And so, one of those guys you look at going, can you get to 235? Probably. That's probably where you look at being. I don't think you'll ever be a true hand on the ground tight end, and that's okay. You can play things a lot of different ways nowadays. And so, yeah, I think he's a guy that gives you that hybrid look, the ability to come in and do some things. And, you just signed Hollis Davidson. He'll be a similar type of guy. And so give you a couple of those types of players on there. As you continue to kind of give yourself as many varieties of players, I think, on offense as you can find. I think you got big receivers, smaller receivers. Now you got, more of a hybrid tight end to go along with bigger body guys there as well.
He played wide receiver in high school. Why do you think Auburn wants to transition him into that tight end position?
Yeah, I think, he's, bigger wide receiver and not a guy that runs a 4.4. So he's athletic, but probably a guy that you feel like you can add some size to. Not going to slow him down a whole lot, but not a guy that you feel like is a true threat as a wide receiver right now. And so I think, there's some different guys. You think about what you need to succeed on this level at wide receiver and probably go maybe not quite as quick and explosive as you'd want him to be at that size. And so can you add size to him and let him kind of have the matchups with linebackers and safeties? That's probably where they're looking at for him down the road.
Who do you think is on Auburn's radar to commit next?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. You look at it and, it's it's a much different board now than it was a couple of months ago, just because the way these things are flying. And so, I think for me, when I start to look at it, it's hard to find a lot of those guys. I think Wilson Zaire is probably one. The offensive lineman from over in Georgia, I think that's a guy that you look at. And so a lot of it too depends on, Auburn is kind of playing the slow game, and we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit more here later. But I think, Braylon Womack's probably the biggest name guy that's still out there. His sister plays softball at Auburn. For Auburn, you've had, some offers, but you're not going out there just throwing Texas Tech money at folks right now because of the way this thing works. But maybe you go, okay, well, you maybe put together a couple of offers for guys that have decided to go elsewhere to get you a couple of big name guys. And so that could change things too. So it's just a very different world right now. And so it's hard to tell exactly what direction it'll be next.
Jason, let's talk about Jacoby Matthews too. Auburn adds him this past week, and coming out of high school, was one of the top players in the country, and had to go to JUCO last year. Been at Texas A&M though for a couple of years. A 5-star plus safety. They're coming out of high school. Just talk about him and what he'll add to the secondary. It's already loaded, by the way. This is probably one of the deepest positions that we have on the whole team. And now you add this guy back there, and it just makes things even tougher for opposing teams.
Yeah, I think Auburn's back five is the strength on defense. And obviously you got Keldrick Falk and you got some guys up front that can play, but you look at that group of corners, safeties, and whoever winds up being a nickel. And I think it's the deepest group. It's probably the deepest group on the team. And you got some depth on the offensive line for the first time, and obviously wide receiver. But you had Jacoby Matthews to Caleb Harris and Sylvester Smith, and the two freshmen that you brought in, Anquan Fagans and Eric Winters, and you brought in Tay Seymour. And so you look and you go 6 or 7 deep. I didn't mention Kinsley Faustin is back there too, Jaquez Robinson. So you got 7, 8 guys that you feel good about. And, you start to talk about the mixture of players. And so you bring in, a guy that has some experience, obviously really talented. Seymour's a guy with experience. Get Caleb Harris back, who played really well as a true freshman last year. And Sylvester Smith, is a redshirt sophomore. And then you add the 2 talented true freshmen. And so it's a really good mixture of players with experience and talent, all those things. But yeah, you look at it, when you add a guy like this, it's talent, it's size. I mean, he's 6'2", 210, 215. So it gives you a different feel than really anybody else they've got at that spot other than Eric Winters. That's about what he is. But yeah, knows the defense because of Durkin being at Texas A&M a couple of years ago. That's a big deal. And I think it's probably one of the biggest reasons why he chose Auburn is because he didn't play football last year.
Right.
And so this gives him a chance to hit the ground running in a system that's pretty familiar with him. And so I think that's a big deal too. So normally you'd say, man, adding a guy at the end of the summer would make it tough for him to play. This is a little bit different situation, I think, with him because of knowing the defense.
Faith, you and I know Jason feels the same way, but coming out of spring practice with some of these freshmen, especially new boy Fagans, Anquan Fagans, knowing he's going to play, and then you add, Jacoby Matthews back here as well. I mean, this is the great group of old and young mixed. And I think you need a good combination there. You got some veteran guys that have been in the trenches, but I'm looking forward to some of these younger guys. They seem way ahead of schedule. Faith.
Oh, me? Yeah. Oh, I thought you were talking to.
No, I was thinking about you and I, our conversation with Anquan Fagans.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you don't see a lot of that coming right out of high school, the way that we've talked about his IQ and how intelligent he is on the field and the way that he sees things. And you don't see that a lot coming out of high school, and you don't get to really teach somebody that. They're just born with it. It's a natural part of them. And I think the way that we've watched him, and even just from the few weeks that we were there, just the growth and development from him there. And also just hearing from some of the players and just how a lot of these younger guys have worked so hard and really trying to put on weight is a big one, and just get in that chemistry and bond together as a team is something really important going into the season.
Yeah, and I want to stick with that for just a second, Jason. Talking about those guys, normally you wouldn't rely on in the secondary on a bunch of freshmen. But these guys really, and that's what Faith and I have talked about probably for a couple of months, is that these aren't your average freshmen. These are the game change. I mean, this is why this class this past year was ranked 6th on y'all's site 24/7. In also the transfer portal class was ranked 6th. I think both of them were ranked 6th in the country. And but you're going to be getting a lot of production out of some of these freshmen that you kind of saw with baseball this year. Auburn was picked 12th in the league, and then you look up and you see what they were able to do. It was because their freshmen were way ahead of schedule.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes it's out of necessity. Sometimes it's because they're really good. And we've seen for Auburn football 2 years ago, it was not a necessity. And you had some good ones too. McKeltry Falk and Connor Lew were really good players. Last year, it was a combination of that. They had to have guys, but Cam Coleman and Malcolm Simmons and Caleb Harris and those guys, J.C. Crawford, those guys were just good football players too. And so you go, yeah, they needed them, but they also proved that they were really good. And DeMarcus Riddick, and there were others. Now you look and go, you finally got some depth. You brought in some guys, you got pieces, but you're still going to have freshmen they're going to play because they're that good. And so I think you look in the secondary, and you're right. New boy Anquan Fagans, to me, because of his not only skill set, but just his instincts and knowledge of the game, are going to put him on the field at some point. Where that's going to be. Could he play some nickel? Could he do some things? I think so. Will we see any of the true freshman linebackers? That's another spot too, that you could have a guy jump in there, provide some depth, whether it's Bryce Diaz or whoever it is. Maybe one of those guys jumps in and makes some noise. But hey, Alvin Henderson, could he jump in there at the running back position and do something? So, and obviously Deuce Knight. When you sign good players, that happens when you have opportunities. And so I think you got a good mixture of that as you head into this season for this team. And there's going to still be opportunities for those guys, even with, a better roster than you've had the last couple of years.
Well, where do you think this roster ranks from the past, 10 to 15 yesome of Auburn rosters?
I think it's the best roster Auburn's had since 2017. 2019 had some players, but some of those guys are true freshmen you're depending on, especially at quarterback. And to me, it's the best roster Auburn's had since 2017. And I think it's really the first chance to actually go out and compete. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean 12 wins? Probably not. But is this a team that I feel like can go out and win any game on the schedule? I do. That's the first time I've said that in 8 years. Even with the Alabama games at home and Georgia games at home in the past, you go, yeah, they got a chance to win those, but you didn't feel like they had a chance to win both of them. You're like, they might make a run to win both. I feel like legitimately this team has the talent to go out and play with anybody on its schedule. And that's the first time in almost a decade that I felt that way. You got to go out and execute, do the things you need to do, but physically and from a depth perspective and talent, yeah, I would say 2017 would be the last time that I kind of felt like you were in this position.
And we're in every game last year. I mean, you think about it, and didn't really have any blowout games. We're maybe a play or two away from the game being different. I know everybody can say that, one way or the other. There were also some games we could have lost if a play or two didn't go our way. So I know it all kind of averages out, but seriously, we all know.
Yeah, there wasn't a 40 to 7. Like even in Georgia, you look and go, you got the fourth down play that changes the momentum of that game.
Absolutely.
Alabama, if you're able to score some touchdowns after some turnovers, and that's part of the talent issue too. And I know people, and they're going to argue and say it's play call and all those things. and I'll go back to Steve Sarkisian. That guy's the greatest play caller in the world when he's got better players. When he doesn't, like when they played Georgia, they struggled in the red zone. Normally the teams with the best players are the best schools in the red zone. And so I think offensive line, quarterback, all those things will help Auburn be better in those situations this season than they were a year ago. And healthy Alex McPherson would really, really help as well.
Well, we want to go in another direction, obviously setting the stage with that part of the show, talking about how great this roster is. We both feel the same way you do, Jason. We feel like this roster is really, really strong, can compete with anybody in the league. Coming off 2 really good, solid recruiting classes, which leads us to what we're going to talk about next. But first, before we do that, Faith, we got to get to some of our partners here on the program. And as always, we start with Sensagreen.
Sensagreen, for air that's cool and clean, call on Sensagreen. They are the carrier experts in the state of Alabama, a proud supporter of Auburn athletics and a proud supporter of the Auburn Blitz podcast. It's hot. Got to have those AC units running because you don't want to be baking in your house because it's so hot outside.
No, you gotta make sure it's working. If it's not, call on Sensagreen and they will take care of you. Scout Program Management, a full construction management firm in Birmingham, Alabama, taking care of your big projects like school builds, renovations, whatever it is. I know there's a lot of indoor facilities being built in the state of Alabama that they're dealing with, new schools that they're over. When you're spending that kind of money, you want to make sure the contractors are doing the work right. So call on Scout Program Management. They will handle your project.
Bunkers in downtown Auburn. If you want to go play golf, but you don't want to do it inside, or if you want to do it inside, you can go to Bunkers because, like we just said, it's so hot outside. But if you don't like golf and you want to play one of their 27 other sports, they've got everything there available for you. And so they've also got great food, great happy hour deals, 2 bars that are right there, so you don't even have to wait. And they got 50 parking spaces downtown, so you don't even have to worry about the parking.
It's just a perfect scenario all the way around. And then, like you said, get inside where it's cool. Don't get out there and burn up on the golf course. All right, Jason, let's shift over a little clarity about this because Auburn fans are panicked. Let's just be honest about it. You know, and you see on Twitter and you see on, message boards and all that. And rightfully so, because you look at the last 2 years and what Hugh Freeze has done. I know the results on the field haven't been what everybody's wanted, but one thing you couldn't knock this staff about was their recruiting. And Auburn had one of the highest ranked recruiting classes they've had in a long time last year and thought they did a great job in the portal as well. And then now you look up and Auburn's 84th in recruiting here in July. And I know you don't sign players right now, but when everybody, it's kind of like the kid on the playground, when everybody on the playground's got a ball they're playing with and you're standing out there and you don't have a ball to play with, it's like, all right, what's going on and why am I getting left out? And we've had some decommitments throughout this process too. We haven't been able to hold on to some guys. Just kind of let's start with that part, Jason. And is there reason to be panicked right now?
Well, there is if what Auburn believes to be true isn't true when the time comes, because then there'll be trouble. Now, this was going to be a smaller class to begin with, so let's start there. This was always going to be a smaller class because of the numbers on Auburn's roster, because they're sophomore and freshman heavy. It was going to be a smaller class to begin with. And so I wrote a story on this a couple of weeks ago, but just from talking to folks, my understanding, and just from reading things, you would look at this and say, look, deals have to be cleared, and every deal over, I think, $600 has to go through a clearinghouse, and it's supposed to be legitimate NIL deals. And so you go, okay, well, then that means that you have to spend your money very wisely from a roster standpoint. So right now, schools are going to get $20.5 million. Well, in the SEC, $2.5 million of that goes to the scholarships. So that guarantees that schools take that money and use it for the extra scholarships in baseball and softball and other sports instead of just spending it all on a football team. So that gives you $18 million. So that's an $18 million starting point for every scholarship athlete on your school that you want to give, quote unquote, revenue sharing to. So basically, you have $18 million to pay any athlete you want to on your school. All $18 million, they go to one person. If you said, hey, we'll give $18 million to LeBron James to come back to school, then he could have all 18, but you wouldn't have anybody else. So Auburn's perspective, you're going like, how do you divide that money up? So they're like, basically 75% of that money is going to football. So you go 75% of $18 million, and you start to go, okay, well, that's not a huge number. It's a lot of money. And then you look at, how do you want to divide that up? Auburn said, look, the most important players right now for us are the guys that are currently on this roster. So that's Cam Coleman and Malcolm Simmons and DeMarcus Riddick and all these young secondary guys we talked about and defensive linemen. You have to budget. This is just like the NFL, except one major difference. You have to budget money what you think 2026 is going to look like next season. So you're going, okay, we want to keep all those guys. So this is how much it's going to cost us to keep all those guys next year. So you do that and you look up and you go, well, you don't have the money to pay an offensive lineman 3 years, $5.1 million. You don't have it. You cannot pay a high school kid $1.7 million of your budget unless you say, well, we're just going to promise you a bunch of money from NIL things, which we heard when we were at the ambush the other night. Those things cannot be that you can promise it to them, but it can't be in a written contract until August 1st. That's why you heard several folks say August 1st. So until August 1st, anything you get promised is just a promise. But once they write it on August 1st, and here's the thing that I don't know that people understand. I've written, and it's hard to tell sometimes too. But say you promise a kid $1.7 million a year, and you tell him, well, it's going to be a combination of this and this. Well, if you can't get those actual NIL deals, like somebody go, well, it just didn't work out. Well, all $1.7 million of that comes out of your budget. You promise it, you got to deliver, no matter how you do it. But you got to go get legitimate NIL deals. And we saw from our guys at CBS Sports, they went back and said, hold on, there's $5.1 million of this, but only if we believe things are like they are right now. So they've already put a caveat in there going, well, we may not be right about this. We're promising you all this money, but if they come back and say, well, you can't get that, then here's how much we can give you. That's what right now, that's the side that Auburn is on. They're going, look, this thing isn't going to work this way. Here's what we believe is going to work. If they're right, then there'll be some people that come back and go, look, you were right. You're if they're wrong, then you'll have a blink of an eye to turn around and go, okay, well, we've got a couple of months to try to fix what others have done and play that way. And so
it ain't gonna happen. The time frame will be too small, I think. And Faith, I know you got a question you want to ask here in just a minute, but I want to keep going down this line. And Jason, just feels like a gamble. I think we all talked about that. And you got to trust in John Cohen and the coaches to. Here's my problem with the whole thing. And I said this Saturday. Why are we all interpreting this? Why is it not just cut and dried? Why is there not? Because it seems like everybody's interpreting it one way, and this group over here. But it does seem like Auburn has taken a stance that they're going out and saying we're doing it like this, and everybody over here is doing it like this. And I think I heard some other people on some other programs say there's safety in numbers. Herd mentality, like, if nobody's really sure about something, you can come back and say, well, hey, this is how we interpreted it. They're all interpreting it that way. How are you going to punish me for that? Yeah. But we're going ahead and taking a hardline stance saying we're not going to get into that. This is what we feel like is the right way. And if it doesn't work out, just like you said, Jason, we're going to be so far behind. I don't know if we can get caught back up. Well,
the good thing is in this day and age, one class doesn't destroy you because you can go to the portal. You can go get help, and then you can go back in the next class. That's the good thing about it. It's a different world. In 1992, if you had a class where you went, man, that was tanked. Okay. I mean, then you're dead in the water. But now you look at it and go, okay, well, all that money that we could have spent on all these recruits, we're fixing to spend it all on 7 portal guys, or we're losing some key guys, offensive line, a couple of guys. You can remedy that. I mean, Ole Miss has not recruited very well from the high school ranks in a while. They've still won games. So you can overcome that in this day and age. You couldn't have done it 10 years ago. Is it ideal? No, it's not ideal. But yeah, you're right. I do think that's the mentality now. People like, nothing's changed, and there's people spending money like nothing's changed. And if there's no repercussions, then everything that has been done, all these commissions, all these people that have been done, is done for nothing. You can just throw it all away and start over again, because and I firmly believe that if it's not done, and what we're seeing now just continues, then I believe our sport's going to be done. I really do.
I think we're
I don't think you can continue to do this and just keep paying. And they're going to get money, but if you get $14 million to spend on a football roster legally, and then you're spending another $50 million on a football roster.
Well, why do you have a cap anyway at that point?
That you won't. I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's what if Auburn's wrong and this is continued to go, then I think our sport is doomed. I really do. And I think all of them are doomed. There has to be guidelines. There has to be something going on, because if not, it is, I mentioned earlier, NFL. This is NFL free agency, but with no guidelines. There's no contract. You can do it every year, and it don't even take a year. I mean, heck, we saw Caden Proctor leave Alabama to go back home to Iowa, and then got a better deal to come back again, and never played it just in the spring.
And showed up, took some money.
You cannot protect yourself. You're going to continue to get money and money and more money and more money, and it's going to be over with, in my opinion. I just don't think it can survive.
I want to go back to August 1st. So August 1st is when they've got the written, and so nothing, like, it's not verbal the way that it has been.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What do you think we're going to see after August 1st? Do you think there's going to be kids that decommit and open their commitment back up, or recruiting back up? Do you think we're going to see any significant changes?
That's a good question, because that's where it's legally binding. So when you write a deal on August 1st for a kid and say, hey, yeah, here's your 3 years, and it's going to be 3 years at $750,000 a piece, then technically, as it reads, that school is on the hook for that money as part of its revenue sharing deal. And so, can you go find NIL deals? Yes, but they're supposed to be legitimate NIL deals to be able to go and get a bunch of money. And I've said this recently. This time last year, Cooper Flagg, by the time he got done last year, that guy had legitimate NIL. This time last year, is Cooper Flagg a guy that had $1 million of NIL value at this time? Legitimately, no chance. None. Never played a game. Guy from Maine, he didn't, you wouldn't have known what that guy was. And so, yeah, you do have legitimate NIL guys, but I do think that's going to be one of the things that you look at. And that's the biggest part of this, is who gets cleared, what gets cleared, how much money can you actually make off your name, image, and likeness, and those kind of things. That's going to be a big part of this. And ultimately, that's where this thing is going to draw the line.
I think a lot of go ahead, Faith. Go ahead.
No, I mean, Glenn commented and said, why are so many still committed to Alabama? What's going on in all this? It's the same thing of, why are people decommitting from Auburn?
Well, that's because if you promising things that Auburn's like, look, here's how we're playing it. We cannot promise you $3 million.
Right.
Because here's what our budget is. Here's how much we're going to pay a freshman at this position because of what we're doing. And we're being told that you cannot get a deal for $1.5 million for a kid that nobody knows who he is.
What about the increments? So we're hearing about how people are getting paid either monthly or yearly of, okay, if you're coming now, if you're going to be here for this year, you're going to get $250,000 for your freshman year and your sophomore year. Is that going to be written in, even though it's not just this year, it's going to be for the next 2 years or whatever?
Oh, if it's on the contract, you're on the hook unless they were to leave. Now, if they leave, then it's over with. But if you say, hey, you're getting $250 first year, $350 second year, and $500 if you stay to your third year, then if it's in the contract and that kid is still there, then that's part of your revenue share. Now, if that's guaranteed, like you said, if it's a guarantee part of it, then that's guaranteed. If you're going, hey, we believe we can get you this much money in NIL or whatever too, you're on the hook for that. And if you can get money if they get NIL money through your collective or whatever, then my understanding is that begins to knock some of that number away.
Well, see, that's a gray area too. I mean, because I read, and I know we heard John Cohen say this. He gave the example: if the university were to give $400,000 and an outside source give $400,000, that's $800,000 off your cap. Correct?
It is. But if the student athlete actually gets $400,000 from a third party,
right,
then it's just $400,000. But if you can't get legitimate deals,
right,
then it's the full $800,000.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. Then it comes out off the cap, and others are saying it's not doing that. And so, again, why can't this look? Here's where I go back to, and this is the thing that makes me nervous about the stance Auburn's taking. When have we ever had confidence that a governing body is actually going to enforce anything? Like, it's kind of like the ask permission or ask forgiveness rather than permission scenario. It's easier to ask forgiveness than it is permission, the herd mentality. I appreciate, look, and I think all three of us appreciate Auburn saying, look, we know what penalties have been in the past with old structures of NCAA. We want to do things the right way, and we feel like we are following the guidelines. But I am antsy to think that any new governing system, this new sports commission that's been formed, is going to go in there and tell 15 top programs in the country that, no, you can't do that and you've done it wrong and we're about to enforce all these massive penalties. It's hard for me to envision that.
Like I said, if it doesn't happen, then it's over with.
And I think it's over.
Here's your one chance, because if it doesn't happen, then we have not seen the beginning of the Wild Wild West. Because now you have money legitimately that people are getting them, and then you're going to be able to go NIL on top of that. When you start talking about that types of money, I'm telling you, now people are going to go, I don't know. There's a reason why the NFL and those there's a different mindset. People love the NFL. That's fine. It's just not my thing. Major League, but we're teetering on the brink of this being worse than the NFL, in my opinion, because again, the NFL, somebody signs a 3-year deal, they're there unless you want to trade them. If there's no penalties involved in this, then you're going to see some very hard line stances from some folks, in my opinion, and I think it's really going to hurt this sport.
Well, I mean, Faith, you and I talked about why even have a salary cap if you're going to say you have a limit, but then you can go out here and get all this other stuff on top of it. It should count against it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But if it is interpreted the opposite way of Auburn interpreting it, and you can say, oh, well, the university's only going to give you $250,000, but you can go get 1.5 from this collect, because these collectives aren't going away. They're going to be there, and they're going to funnel money through. So you could just manipulate it to where it's not costing the university, X number of dollars, and run everything else through the collective. And then in essence, there is no salary cap.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing. Well, and that's the thing. It's like if that's the case, then I think again, will the sport continue to go? Yes. Will it be hurt forever, in my opinion, if this doesn't work? Absolutely. I think people are going to.
I think the sport's already damaged.
Oh, I mean, it's already so different. Yes, but this was you're going to pay folks here. Here's your one chance to maybe try to fix some of this. Now, it's still ridiculous, in my opinion. Hey, should people get some money? Absolutely. Should a high school kid make $1.7 million that has never played? No. And people go, well, they do it all the time in baseball. That's okay. Whatever. That's not here. But yes, do I think it's crazy to see what we're seeing right now? Yes. And you're right. There's no way to know which side of the fence you're on right now. But no matter what, if Auburn's wrong, then it's an implosion of everything that was believed to be anyway, and you just go spend however much money you got, and that's what we'll be living in.
Well, Jason, man, I know we got a little bit of a later start this morning. I had a meeting this morning that was sprung on me, and appreciate you willing to get on a little bit later. But tell everybody before you get off how they can keep up with everything going on at 24/7, because you guys do the best, in my opinion, of making sure you stay on top of all of this stuff changing and all the recruitment information. Tell everybody how they keep up with you guys.
Yeah, check us out at auburnundercover.com, part of 24/7 Network, and follow me on Twitter at ITATJason. And like I said, getting geared up, we'll have SEC Media Days here next week or so. So should be really interesting to get the takes of how people are approaching this from across the league. That should be really interesting.
Going to be a hot topic, no doubt about it. Jason, appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
Bye, Jason.
Have a good day, man. That's Jason Caldwell with 24/7. Auburn Undercover always does a great job. Faith, let's get to some more of our partners, and then I want you and I to dive into this a little bit more from our perspective. Sure Shot.
Sure Shot. They've got all your firearm apparel and hunting needs. They sell and trade new and used firearms. They've got safes. They've got handgun courses, everything that you might need. It's always hunting season, so there's nothing wrong with doing target practice and everything like that. And Sure Shot's going to be able to help you out. So calling them at 256-329-0080. And Oliver Ross, if you've got a party of 20 up to 20,000 people, Oliver Ross is certified and licensed bartender. So they're going to be able to take care of the bartending and all of those things while you're able to focus on the hostessing and being able to take care of the entertainment part. So call on Oliver Ross because they're awesome people and they've got some great events that they've been up to, and you better go ahead and get them before the semester starts.
Yeah, don't let them get booked up. You'll be out there hung out to dry for sure. All right, so I want to go back and continue this discussion, just you and I on this. We got some more comments coming in that we're going to get to here in just a second. I just have an uneasy feeling, I'll be honest with you, because you really are gambling. You're putting yourself out there when you decide to take an opposite stance than what everybody else seems to be doing. I mean, what's your thought on that?
I just think that without the clarity of everything, what are you supposed to do? I get taking the conservative route and not wanting to go over and have to get penalized of, oh, well, I just didn't know, y'all made it unclear. How are we supposed to know? That kind of thing, because it's easier to blame it on somebody else, right? It's easier to blame it on them for not saying, hey, y'all gave this description of what it is. We just have to interpret it in different ways. But I also don't understand how recruiting is able to go on with promises that can't be made or go through. So I don't really even know.
Well, it's almost like, you have to tell yourself, okay, they're still trying to figure all this stuff out. So I'm going to continue to operate and recruit at a full max. And then if they come back and tell me we got to do something else, then we're just going to have to say, because what if this does happen, the schools are going to blame this new sports commission. They're going to say, well, we were recruiting you like we thought we could, and they came in and told us we couldn't do that. So then, just like everybody said, they're going to come back and there's going to be guys that decommit and they're going to be on the open market for Auburn to come back. But I don't see it happening that way. And I hear exactly what Jason's saying. I think that's the crossroads that we sit at right now, is that you got a new sports commission. you got all these schools out there that are they're pushing the gas pedal down further instead of letting off. They're going harder, and their speed limit's increasing, and they're like, good luck. If you want to punish me, you're going to punish them and them and them and them and them. And it's that herd. I keep going back to that herd mentality, safety and numbers deal. I think that's what they're saying is like, I'm not going to take 2 or 3 months off and tell a bunch of kids I'm not going to be able to do anything for you. I mean, because you can protect yourself. Let's just be honest. You can say, okay, here's what I want to do. The verbal deal I want to do with you is this. Now, I can't really do anything until August and whatever, but there may be some things that change down the line, and if they do, they're not on us, but we'll figure it out if you want to stay committed here and you want to come here. I just think Auburn saying, look, I'm not going to talk to you about any of that at all until after August 1. And these other schools have been continuing to do what they've been doing. And so, like Jason said, if that commission doesn't come out and hold some people accountable, if they are doing it the wrong way, then it's over. I really, truly think it is.
Like Jason said, though, the good thing is the transfer portal is where you can go and pull from. So relying on the high school recruiting is not as important. But, I mean, it does put a damper on Auburn's program. And going from the great recruiting class we had last year and the year before to this.
Justin said, I need to get the main guy from the Sports Commission on the show and ask all these questions directly. I'd love to have him on here. I think it'd be great. We're looking forward to having Coach Tuberville on at some point in time in the near future. And I know he's been very prominent in the discussions of how college football and the direction of college athletics is going to go, with maybe some potential legislation even that he was helping with. I'd love to hear his take on this and see what his opinion is. So hopefully we can get him on sooner than later. That's another person I'd like to have on. Tubbs Tiger says, I remember a few months ago, C5 was doing an entire podcast about how ahead of the game Will Redmond was. Freeze is a wounded duck and season hasn't even kicked off. Look, I'll say this about that. Like this recruiting right now has no bearing on what's going to happen on the field this year. Okay. So let's just go ahead and preface that. I hear what you're saying, but the hay, so to say, is in the barn already for this season. You got the players you've got, and in a couple of months, you're about to hit the field and you got to start winning football games. And everybody's talking about, even Coach Freeze at Ambush, winning football games, and we're going to win football games. And Faith, you and I have talked it till we're absolutely just dead blue in the face. But that is the truth. If Auburn starts the season all 5-1, with that stretch coming up where they are going to be favored in all of those games outside of probably the Alabama game at the end, but if they run off a big run of those games, no telling what the point spread will be at the end of the season. But my point is, start off 5-1 going into the next 4 games, you're very favorable. I mean, this whole mindset and mood and discussion is completely different.
I think if we
I can't bail in the middle of the season, John. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah, I was reading.
They can. I mean, they can bail, but they're not going anywhere. So I guess they could just sit off to the side. But my point is, they can't. They're on this roster now, getting ready to go into the season. I mean, we're about a month and a half away from playing football. I mean, we're here.
Even after hearing last year, talking to some of the guys when I was doing the pregame interviews, they were saying that the chemistry was so good and they were able to really gel and connect. But obviously we didn't see that out on the field. That did not portray in our record, especially. But this year, I think there is a different dynamic, and I don't know if it's just coming from the players themselves or if it's coming from the coaches too. And I think that's what this team needs, of going out and actually winning games, because we do have the roster to do it. And if we don't win games, why? Because we have the roster to. What's the problem?
Well, Jason said it. You and I've said it. Randy said it. Everybody we've talked to, this feels like this is, and I thought Jason was spot on with the best roster since 2017. And, you know, that team went to the SEC championship game and had just beaten Georgia and Alabama back to back going into that game. And had beaten, I mean, both of them were ranked number one at the time. I think it's the first time that ever happened where you beat a number one ranked team 2 weeks in a row. So very, very talented roster. And this roster is definitely, I feel like, as close to that roster as any we've had. And so I know we're coming off 4 losing seasons and all that good stuff, but really it's about performance now. It's about living up to billing. It's, you know, whatever it takes to show everybody and give them because let's just be honest, take all this other stuff out, take the NIL out, all this kind of stuff, and let's just say you're just trying to recruit somebody to come to your school and all you can give them is a scholarship. Well, Auburn, to me, still would be having an issue right now because you got to prove that you can win some games. You know, these top recruits can come in and visit and talk about how great they love, you know, the university and their visit and all this kind of stuff. But when your rivals are going 10, 11, 12 wins every year and you're winning 5 or 6, at some point in time, you got to flip the script or people are going to say, I hear what you're saying, but it ain't translating on the field. So I'm going to go where I can actually compete for championships. Isn't that what almost every single recruit you've talked to over the last 3 months has told you to your face, Faith, is they want to go somewhere that they can compete for a championship? Because most of those guys have won one in high school.
I was going to say a lot of them have already won state championships in high school. So, of course, you're going to want to go and compete for a national championship. Are you kidding me? They all obviously said that. So it's time to go out and win games that you're supposed to win and actually play the way that everybody is perceived to be. And also just the way that they're on paper supposed to be one of the best rosters.
Right.
So there's no reason why Auburn should not be going out there and winning.
I agree with you 1,000%. I think that's where Auburn fans are. It's kind of a mixed bag. You know, Auburn waiting. We titled one of our podcasts the other day, "Season Can't Get Here Fast Enough," right? We're ready to see if this Auburn program can get back to playing the Auburn football that we all love and appreciate and know that they can play. On the flip side, you got the recruiting going on in this new world of all these rules. So it's kind of like over here, you got some anticipation and excitement. Over here, you got some despair and worry. You're like literally riding a fence. Good over here, bad over here. You want this to be good. You want this to get better. But if this over here goes bad, the season, then it all goes to pot. So, I mean, again, don't worry about this class so much right now in July. Worry about the preparation going into the season and what the first 5 or 6 weeks of the football season is going to look like for Auburn. Then let's all come back to the table at the end of September and let's analyze where we are. I think you and I are going to be on this show at the end of September having some real conversations about everything, recruiting and how the season's going. If we're sitting there at 5-1 or 4-1 or 4-2 or whatever, I mean, versus 2-4 and the recruiting, I mean, these conversations are going to be all over the map depending on how we're doing on the field.
There's no doubt.
All right, so some more comments here. Glenn said AU on paper has turned into a playoff team. You know, we'll just have to see how it plays out. I mean, potential 4 first-round draft picks. I saw a guy talk about that the other day. There's been 14 teams out of the last 14 teams that had 4 first-round draft picks, Faith. 12 of them won a national title, and the other 2 won 10 games. So if we were to live through this and 4 guys on this team will end up being first-round draft picks, that tells you where you should be as far as competing on the field. That, numbers don't lie. Facts, that's facts. That's not some fabricated mess. That's facts. So, like John said, put up or shut up. That's what we've been saying a million times. So, over the last 2 to 3 months. John said prayers for those impacted the floods and the fireworks. We talked about that right out of the gate on the show. We'll continue to pray for all these people and a boat fire up on Smith Lake. And then Tubbs Tiger comes in and said that there was word China put new COVID in the fireworks. And he said, while that may be true, also designed them to malfunction. Well, I will say this. I don't try to dive into a bunch of conspiracy theory stuff, but there were a lot more malfunctions I've seen on social media of fireworks this year than I think I can ever remember. Now, I know we had one right here close to us that we knew those people, and it was a very, very unfortunate incident, but I've seen them all over the country. And so I'm not saying that they don't malfunction every year, but just seems like there's been more that we've seen this year. So, all right, Faith, we will be at Baumhauer's here in just a few hours.
We will. Really excited to go over there, get some good food. Everyone come out there, get some gooey fries on us.
Yeah, gooey fries on us. All you got to do is come out and say you're there with Auburn Blitz, and you get a free order of gooey fries with your lunch. So come on and check us out, and we'd love to see you out there at Baumhauer's at noon today for our noon show. Before we get off, a couple more partners we want to thank.
Old Number One Customs. They've got some of the most beautiful outdoor living seating that they do. Kitchen remodeling, bathroom remodeling. Brett, you're about to get yours done. And they're just awesome people, and you want to be able to trust the people that are coming in and out of your house. And they'll be in and out in just 2 weeks. So get it done with Old Number One Customs.
334-752-6162.
JFA Blue Plumbing. If you want filtered water throughout your whole house, which I don't know why you wouldn't, call on JFA Blue Plumbing, because they'll be able to install Home Atlas Water Filter Duo for just $15.99. And you can't put a price on health, and you don't know how important having filtered water is. So call on them at 844-JFA-BLUE.
Can't thank them enough. All of our great partners here on the program. Appreciate everybody jumping on with us a little bit later. Had a meeting this morning I had to be at, so I got started about 15 minutes late, but we appreciate everybody hanging with us. And again, we will talk about this and a lot more at lunch today. Faith and I will be at Baumhauer's, as we just said, so we're looking forward to that. Always a great time out at Baumhauer's, so come check us out. Like Faith said, free gooey fries on us if you come see us. So that's worth the trip in itself. I mean,
right off of Bank Creek.
Exactly. So come check us out. All right. It is Monday. I hope everybody had a great 4th of July weekend, made it through safely. Just tough coming off of a holiday weekend, getting right back in the thick of things on a Monday. But we hope everybody has
the best day ever.
And, as always, a big old
War Eagle.